Hey, God help me out this week, you guys. I have not been in the garden at all this week. Well, not all the weekdays. And just came from my friend's house where we're helping her move out into a smaller place that's adapted for her husband who's come home after 7 months in the hospital and rehab centers. Got a terrible car accident. What, one of those things that we always say, Steve and I, that everybody's got to beat the light. The light is changing and they still got to get through. This guy came through and just wiped out Jerry. So they're in a smaller place that's able to handle the wheelchair. And we're trying to make sure that tomorrow when people come to look at the house before the holidays, they go, yes, this is our house and sell it. So I haven't been out in the garden, I've been every place else. So if anybody's got anything to talk about, you're going to have a lot more to talk about than me. Nancy, go ahead.
Hi, Janet.
Hello.
Um, as we are all trying to get used to the cold weather and saying, oh dear, what happened to summer?
Yeah.
Um, we have a reason here to be kind of glad that summer is done, and that is Japanese beetles.
Are they finally gone? You haven't seen one
They're
for how
they're
long?
finally gone, and Gail had asked us how, because we keep kind of a daily tally, and Gail had asked us how many total we had come up with during the summer, because we pick them off by hand and put them in the bucket. And we hadn't totaled them up until David did so a few days ago, and the total was 2,633.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. What
Mhm.
did you write it on the calendar every day when he came in? How many you picked that day?
Yes, yeah. Yep.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and of course
2000.
there are always the few that get away, and a couple of days that we didn't check. So
There's an analog there, and when I cut things down, I have occasionally reported here how many stems the cup plant had, or how many stems I had to cut to cut back the Veronica to deadhead the Veronica, and it gets to where I say, I don't think I really want to know this number. There was one year when I decided Steve never comes up with these crazy things. I said, let's keep track of how many tons of stone and how many yards of mulch we move around this year. And maybe a month into it, I went, no, I don't think I want to know. Especially when you add up moving it like mulch, moving it to the garden and then moving it out of the wheelbarrow, usually a handful at a time. I said, no, I don't think I want to know. Not nice numbers. I was mentioning just when I first came on, and I'm not sure who all was here, that I have not been in the garden since Saturday, or maybe it was Sunday morning. I have been in a basement crawling around and in a garage crawling around, unpacking boxes and deciding what to take from a bigger house to a smaller house, cleaning things up. It's a whole different mindset and it's more wearing. I could crawl in the garden, I could wheelbarrow all day, and I'm not tired at the end of the day. But after I've made 422 decisions about whether or not to keep this and where to pack that, I'm exhausted at the end of the day. So I don't have much to tell you about other than the things that thank goodness people have written into us about and what we did last Saturday. So if you've got any questions, now would be the time to think them up so we can find something to do in the next hour. Nancy, you have some more?
I do. I'm just reacting to something you said about deciding what to take and what to leave. So does that mean you're going to be moving and leaving another garden?
Oh, no. Sorry, we're helping a friend. Our friend's husband in April got hit by a truck.
Okay, that one, yeah.
And we've been helping them move. And tomorrow the real estate is bringing people over to look at the house, and we're still not haven't moved everything out. So all week long we were packing things up, and then we're taking them to a smaller place. So where to put them in this smaller place so that we can figure out, I don't know. It's been crazy. But no, no, I intend to stay with this garden now. I don't. I hate to leave a garden. Absolutely hate
Yeah.
to leave a garden. I think most people do, unless of course you're leaving one that I remember Julie's garden. And I said, why don't you just move to someplace else? She had lots on three sides of her that each had their own vicious weed coming in to her lot. I said, why don't you just go someplace else? Because unless they start working on this stuff, it's never going to be any better.
Oh, well, thank you for clarifying. I'm glad you're not moving, and I'm very sorry about your friends.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. We're really glad that he's home. You know, when something like that happens, you're not even sure that someone's going to come home in the long run. And it's just good to see him. He just came home this week to the new house. Oh,
I
hi, Sonia.
I was just looking for those three names from them three hydrangeas that I got ready last night, and now I can't find it.
And they're right here somewhere. I had a client who kept up. There was a drawer in the laundry room that, oh, about as big as you'd have for a silverware drawer in the kitchen. And it was full of tags. She would bring the tag in, wipe it off, and put the tag in there. She said, someplace in here is the name of everything I've got or had. Maybe I've killed it already, but it's in here, and that's where she kept them. I put them where I think they're in clever places in files in the computer. Um, I have just as much trouble finding them as you probably have finding it. We'll get to those. We'll get to those.
Yeah, I hope so.
And here we go with Free for All Friday. Welcome. Everybody's welcome. We celebrate growing and cultivate problem solving here. This is our 61st Free for All Friday. And we is gardenatz.org. I'm Janet McConovich, and my husband Stephen Nicola is usually with me. And he is actually with me all the time because if you didn't take pictures of things, I wouldn't be able to be talking to you in such detail about some of the things that we do. I'm generally the one sticking my nose into things, doing the research and doing a lot of the writing for our website, where we've been putting up what we wrote in magazines, newspapers, magazines, our books, anything that we can find that we've been writing over the years that we can put in here and then build on top of it rather than write the same things over again. And we appreciate it if you tell people about the website and find things there that you can that can help you in your garden. And we do the Free for All Fridays on Fridays, other than when we have a webinar on the next day, so that we can keep in touch, because we found out over the years, gardening professionally for 40 years, writing professionally as gardeners for about 30 years, that the more that we talk with each other, the more that we expand the experience we have in the garden, and the better everybody becomes as a gardener. So we have encouraged people to send us emails or texts. Our phone number is there. You'll find it if you look for it on the Fridays page. Our phone number is there so that you can text to us, you can email to us, and we answer each of those individually, but we also put those that seem applicable to a wide group and where we can share some information about it. We put those into articles or Free for All Friday or webinars. There we go. And did anybody bring any questions to us right now? If anybody's got any questions, go ahead and start those now. All right. I told you last Friday about our finishing up our holiday decorations at the Waterford Township Library, where I volunteer and a number of other people volunteer. We designed and planted and maintained the gardens in front of the library. It's a lot of fun. And we were putting our decorations, which we do each winter, last week. And on Saturday morning, we were finishing them up. So I thought I'd show you what it looks like now. So here was last Friday. What we had done on Wednesday was put up a Christmas tree, build some uh, just for the winter shrubs underneath. They're not planted, they're just built on the ground. And what we finished doing afterwards was what you see here. And I'll show you those things individually. That's the group. Well, that's who was there on Saturday. It's not the whole group. It's always a different group of people. We have a lot of fun. It is just one of the enjoyable things to do, to share with other people who like to garden the discoveries that you make. And look at this, and hey, do you believe this? And what was this plant? Just nice to have someone else to talk to about it. And some of them don't like having their pictures taken. I don't often take pictures of the people who are there. Steve does when he's there. They say no, don't put me in a picture. Darrell says, but I think everybody is really important in this. Even the people who tell me, well, I'm not a gardener. Well, you come here and you do things like you wheelbarrow and you carry things around. Some people come just to watch, which is fine. You're coming to watch. You see people using their tools, not talking about them, but using them. And we tend to do what we would forget to tell people. we are just doing them because we naturally do them. And I'll hear people say, wait, what did you just do to your pruners right there? Or can I see your weeder? That looks interesting. That's a great way to learn. So we took the little Christmas tree that we put up, and that's Kathy and Connie are putting ornaments on it that Donna took seed pods and sprayed the seed pods, and they're taking those branches and tying them with some hemp cord onto the branches to get a little bit of color on there. Priscilla helping now and Paul watching, and there's Donna. When they get done, there's just a little bit of color, a little bit of interest. We try to go with everything biodegradable, so it's hemp string and things made out of plant material. Just a little bit of color, so when people come in, they can smile a bit rather than see an empty bed where we took out the annuals that grow in there. And I showed you last week that we decided that this area, which stays evergreen right here, is really too small around the trunk of the tree to be of interest, and our hellebores back here are still too small. So we extended, made it a bigger area for winter interest by making a shrub. We put yew branches down to make a shrub, and now we've added more because the pulmonaria behind will go away too. So we made a little holly bush back here, added hydrangeas in around the Sweet William and pine, and used pine around the hellebores because that combination of the coarser texture and the finer texture is really good. We started out with false cypress under there and decided, no, we're going to move the false cypress someplace else. We moved the false cypress and added it into some false cypress we had underneath our fake holly here. And then Pam and others added little doily stars. It was Debbie to the dogwood tree. The leaves will fall off as the fall progresses. But just little touches like that, things that can make people smile. And we didn't think we needed to do much to our evergreen herb area: thyme, santolina, called cotton lavender, sage. But I was looking and said, the mum will just turn brown. It'll be mound there. But we took our pansies out of this pot, and this baptisia will turn black in the winter. I said, let's put some of the hydrangeas there. So hydrangeas and pine, because people have things to work with and they get creative. Very creative. Connie is putting colorful spray painted pine cones onto the ginkgo tree, and we couldn't reach the top, but she said, no, I can just thread it over this rake, and amazingly got them all the way up to the top of the tree. And here, where our arbors, these arbors are primarily for the kids. Initially, the garden was designed to be a kids' garden, and they could bring the kids in their story hours or whatever out to see the garden and talk about the plants that are there. And so we made the arbors. These are short arbors. To go through them, we duck. But the kids love to walk through there, and they can walk along the back into the library behind the beds. So those arbors have been one of the main things that we decorate in the wintertime. And we left them because Donna had cut a lot of things at home, a lot of arborvitae, and I brought some more things, some euonymus and some pine. And we're getting ready now, and others are putting them on. What we do is we put a piece of euonymus up here, and because we've got braided branches that make the arbor, we can really put these butt ends of these branches right in there. But if we need to, we tie them on. But we put one up here, and then we cover its butt end with the next one that's here until we get all the way down to the bottom. And we actually have a euonymus now planted at the bottom, because as I was cutting these things to bring them to the library, I realized, oh, look, this one is rooted. So we might as well put that one on, and we'll grow it all year. We had a clematis here, right here on this one, and it became virus infected this year. We saw it beginning to deteriorate, so we've taken it off. Judy is working on putting hydrangeas in among the arborvitae that we put there. And Debbie is adding the blue touch along the bottom, blue star juniper, and some pieces of blue spruce that we've made into a little tiny tree. And so when we're done, we have different colors. The eye can go back and forth. People can see their kids as they walk through here, because the little kids do. They're on their way up to the library front door with their parents, and they'll say, "Oh," and run through. In fact, no sooner had we finished this, and I was sitting in my car, buckling my seatbelt, and I saw two little girls walk through going, ooh, ah, and to us, that's worth it. It's a pretty thing. It's inviting. Much more inviting than, I mean, it's inviting the kids walk through when it's like this, but only in the summer are the vines up here. We've got them cut back now. There's a kiwi vine on the back. We grow an annual vine here. We had a clematis here. There's a honeysuckle cut back here. Any questions about anything? Gretchen says that she took her amaryllis bulb into the basement to rest in the dark and was very good that she went down there unexpectedly fortuitous because she found a leak. Isn't that always the way that for some reason the angel on your shoulder told you go down to the basement right now and check that out? Yeah, water can do such amazingly terrible things in a short amount of time. Thank you, Margie. She has told the Rural Garden Club about Free for All Fridays. Great. Tell other people too. The more people we have, the more information we can share. Carol, my neighbor had tree trimmers working on the oak tree yesterday. I'm assuming we've had enough cold to permit work on oaks. There's still controversy on that. The person that I trust the most says wait until we've had a hard freeze. And we haven't had the hard freeze that kills the stuff, even the protected stuff. I'm not sure if I put the picture in, but the campanula, the Serbian bellflower by my front door is still green and blooming. So Dave Roberts, who's now retired from Michigan State, and he's a private consultant, he said, we really should wait till there's a hard freeze. But in Wisconsin and Minnesota, they did some studies and said, yeah, once you get into the 1st of November, there's no beetles flying anymore to carry the oak wilt spores from tree to tree. So go ahead and prune. So I think we're probably okay. From the 1st of November to the 1st of March is the safe time. Hi, Judith. She's going away in November. At the end of November, she's scrambling to get all the bulbs that I purchased in a moment of insanity. Do we all have those moments of insanity? Why did I come home with another 50 bulbs to plant? I'm mulching assiduously and cutting down vegetable stalks in the raised bed and digging up dahlias and begonias the winter over, but I probably won't have time to do everything on the standard fall cleanup list. I'm right in that boat too. Everything that I was going to do this week, I have not done. I've been helping a friend move. What is a priority for me? And in the fall, weeding is a priority. And if I do have tender things, I'm for the most part not bringing in tender things anymore. But if I had tender things in clients' gardens or my gardens, those were priority. Bring in the tender things and get the weeds out, especially this time of year, the woody weeds and the winter weeds. I almost got home in time. The light was gone by the time I got back here. But I almost walked around the yard to look and say that the winter weeds are the ones that are blooming right now. The bittercress is blooming. I found tick seed, not tick seed, mouse ear. Mouse ear, there's a chickweed. I found chickweed blooming already. And that if they're blooming, it means they can set seed, and I don't want them dropping seed in the garden. They're too late to plant sedum in pots. No, it's not too late to plant. It's a good time to plant now. If you can keep them watered. If they're in a pot, they're going to have a restricted root system. It's not going to spread out real far into the soil. And so you want to make sure that that pot, which has a lighter weight, faster draining potting mix in it most of the time, is moist. So before Steve left for Grand Rapids today, I said, can you please go out and water that little fir that I moved and the transplants that are out there from our friend's garden? So we'll keep watering until the ground freezes, which will be sometime in December. Let's see, new messages coming in. You might recognize these questions pictures because I didn't change them. Michelle says it's not an invasive honeysuckle we have at the library. No, it is what is this one? It's not Japanese honeysuckle. It is one of the cross Lanicera cross Lanicera cross sempervirens. It's one of the hybrids with the evergreen native southeast U.S. Honeysuckle. It's got a variegated leaf on it. Rarely even blooms. We grow it more for the leaf than anything else, but no, not one of the invasive honeysuckles. And which reminds me, we're going to talk about your invasive things here. I guess I better make this chat bigger. I'm having trouble. Oh.
Janet, it's Carol. I have a follow-up question on the oak tree trimming.
Yeah.
The tree that was trimmed is along the edge of a woods. All of us have property along the edge of the woods. The oak trees are 50, 60 or more years old. If there would be a or is there anything I could do with mine, or should I worry about it with the fact that the neighbors had it trimmed and therefore exposure to this insect could become an issue for their tree, any effect possibly on mine?
Well, there definitely is effect from one oak to another between oak wilt and sudden, whether it's oak wilt or sudden oak death. Both of those can be transmitted from one tree to another through root grafts. If the trees are of the same species, their roots may be grafted to each other in the ground. And the only way that you can actually protect a tree is to separate it from the trees around it. What they recommend, I don't know. I see Marvin is here, and he may know better than I do. They originally the prescription for oak protection was if you see oak wilt, and this was oak wilt before sudden oak death came in. You see oak wilt in the area, and we're trying to protect trees that don't have it yet. They would trench between the trees in order to separate any roots that might have been connected between them. That's a really drastic thing to do, and not particularly great for the trees because it does shorten their root system. So I don't think you're going to
Well, and they're along the edge of the woods and they've been there so long. Roots are so deep, it's not going to happen.
Well, no, the roots are not deep. They're made underneath an oak, one of our standard oaks out here. You may have some roots directly underneath the trunk that go down 6, 7, 8 feet, but the
Okay.
rest of the root system is well within the top 18 inches of the soil and gets
Okay.
thinner closer to the soil as it goes further out. And those roots, we were looking at a picture that Michelle sent of her son pulling up a mulberry root, for instance. There's no mulberry tree probably within 15, 20 feet of where he is, and yet he's pulling out another 20 feet of roots. The roots go a lot further than you think that they do, and they are shallow, so they do that. But there's not much else that you can do. We need to knock on each other's doors and say, please don't let them trim your oak, because most people don't realize that. And a lot of the tree trimming services are not.
I was surprised at the service that was doing it because I would have expected them to know.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay.
I always expect people to know things that I don't know, just.
You're surprised they don't.
Yeah. Okay, back to the questions that are in the chat.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, yeah. Marvin has got a continuation of the oak wilt problem. That have I heard anything about the degree days related to beetle emergence? There are beetles, they're referred to as picnic beetles. And I think it's actually a group of beetles that tend to be attracted to the smell of cut wood on oaks. And believe me, it can happen in moments. You cut the tree. I've seen insects come to a cut within 3 minutes of a cut. There's an insect there to drink the sap. And so you want to not be pruning an oak while those beetles are alive. And emergent state is something that's set by how much heat the resting body, the pupa, like the little cocoon that the beetle is in over the wintertime, how much heat it needs before it emerges. And we are able to keep track of those things called degree days. Michigan State keeps track for us, and you can look them up. We should talk about that the next time that we get together. And you can keep track of your degree days and know that this beetle, for instance, well, I'll take Japanese beetles because I know them pretty well. We reach the degree days when Japanese beetles are going to emerge at about 1500, I think it's 1500 degree days, and that's usually the middle to end of June. It's not always, sometimes it's earlier, sometimes it's later, it's just accumulated heat. I don't know what the picnic beetle's emergence date is, but because Dave Roberts, for instance, told us March 1st, I'm figuring that some of those beetles may be out by the end of March, and he'd rather not take the chance, but I'm not sure. I'll take a look at it and see if we can do that. We haven't done degree days in quite a while, so we'll have to take a look at some of those. I think it's fascinating that we know enough to say that right now they're going to be out, and sure enough, they are. Nancy has asked, is it okay to wrap to protect the bark of Japanese maples? Yes, you can wrap bark to basically you're putting on another layer of bark so that they don't have such a thin bark and they don't heat up. It's not recommended that you leave wrap on though. Insects can actually make homes underneath the wrap, so it's a good idea if you're going to wrap a tree to protect it for the winter to unwrap the tree for the next growing season. Anne Hackett is asking about how hard is it to move a large hibiscus. I think this is the same person who dug up a viburnum and a lilac at her house. Am I right, Anne? And dragged them around to the backside. It's a lot easier than that. Large hibiscus might be 3 feet across, and the roots are going to go further than that. But I don't take the whole root system generally. I cut the hibiscus down. If it's this time of year, just right down to the ground, and then I cut maybe a foot out from the where all the stems are. I cut halfway around the plant, and then I lever it up, and I'll get some longer roots on the other side as I pull them up. And it has shallow, long, wide-spreading roots. They're quite brittle. They'll break off easily, and it doesn't matter that they break off. Just cut the ragged ones and move it, or you can even divide it and move it in several pieces. But it's not really too hard to do. I actually would prefer to move a hibiscus than some of these big hostas. Suzanne, I don't know what deer villa is on here. Let's see. Nope, I don't know. There's a question mark here that says deer villa question mark, and I'm not sure why it's there.
And I was wondering if that's the honeysuckle you're thinking of.
No, our native Lanicera deer villa is the dwarf bush honeysuckle that grows here. No, the native one that this one is crossed with is a southeast native, and it's deer villa. It's Lanicera sempervirens, so the evergreen Lanicera. Oh, Jean, I'm glad you're putting that chainsaw. The same friend that we've been helping move, we put up and still have garden tools. Oh, if Ruth is here, I need to be put in contact with the Detroit group that loans and gives people tools. But Jean took the chainsaw the electric chainsaw that my friend had and is not going to need at the new house. And she said to put a very good use in storm cleanup. I'm pretty sure Jean has a place up north that is in the path that was such drastically hit, and I think they became a federal emergency area in the spring by all the ice that fell. Hey, Marvin was here when we were talking about the Xerxes Society, and yes, you do have it spelled correctly, Xerxes. Objection to grinding and spreading leaves. You have the spelling correct. And I have not looked up what article it was who said it. Carol, I think. Carol, if you're here, I think you were the one that said that the Xerxes Society had an article about not or an admonition against grinding leaves. I think I'm almost sure that what they're talking about is the fact that when I grind up those leaves, they don't provide the same kind of protection, the same kind of aeration for some of the insects that live among them. It probably is destroying some of the eggs that may be laid on the leaves. I'm not sure of that, but I haven't looked yet. So we'll see if we can find that for you. And Chris has put her remaining bulbs in a couple of big holes on the side of my woods because she couldn't find the right spots. Yep, that's a good thing to do because sometimes in the fall you have to dig up the plants. Like I like to put bulbs where Japanese anemones are, but why would I want to dig up the Japanese anemones in the fall while they're looking good to put the bulbs under them? It's always a dilemma that way. So she put them in a hole someplace else. Is it better to move them as they start to emerge or after they bloom, or no difference? The best thing to do would be to wait until they bloom and move them in terms of letting them use all of the growing that they did this fall. Because when you move them in the spring, even if you're very careful when you move them, you tend to break some roots, so they lose some of the water drawing capacity and nutrient drawing capacity that they would have had. But we've moved them at all times. We moved some at the when we first started gardening in one of the areas of the Detroit Zoo. There were some bulbs that had been there forever, and we took the weeds out when we got the bed ready, and then saw the bulbs coming up in the spring, but they were planted much too shallow. So we dug them up when they had come up, oh, maybe 6 inches, 5, 6 inches. And then we put them in the ground and we buried them completely. We put them 5 or 6 inches deeper, and they came up fine and bloomed just fine. Uh, but we moved them quite early. It must have been about the 1st of April that we moved them. This is great. I'm glad that you guys have questions. Judith is considering planting some of her Muscarian squill in pots. Yes, she's done this before with mixed results by burying them up to the tops of the containers in a not very sunny raised bed. Oh, okay, yeah, so you're insulating the containers they're in, and that's good to do because when a container is above ground, it gets a lot colder than when it's in the ground, and a lot of these bulbs will freeze at certain temperature. Roots of perennials, roots of woody plants too, are much less hardy than the top. So the garage might be too cold, and the basement's too warm to keep them within the optimal temperature range. I've been reading lately that no method of overwintering the bulbs in pots is reliable. Should I just give up on this idea? Is there a way to improve the chance of success? Yeah, I've had good success with digging a trench and just setting pots into the trench and then loading it up with mulch and leaving them in there in the winter and then pull them out when you want to. And I'm pretty sure Andrea, who was in charge of the greenhouses at Mathi Botanical Gardens for many years before she retired. I'm pretty sure she did the same thing. So it's not reliable to put them in containers that are going to be above ground, but to put them into something that you can pull out. And then if you put that same size container, say in your bigger container, and leave it empty, you can just slide the pot that you've moved from the ground, just slide it right into that pot, and there, boom, you've got an undisturbed growing bulb coming up in the spot where you want to use it. But improving the chance of success is burying it deeper. Huh. Does the spray put on the end of a cut help on I'm assuming this is with tree trimming. That's what the tree people put on my tree branches. They just cut down off my tree 10 days ago. They didn't even give me the courtesy of letting me know they were doing it. You're kidding me. Someone came and cut something on, oh, was it an easement tree? We used to say, arboriculture, the science used to say, paint the wood, and they would use a tar or a paint on the wood in order to help protect it from being infected by things after it was cut and was left open. In the 70s, it was proven that doesn't help and can actually hurt. The tree has a much better chance of sealing off its own cells than if you put something on it, especially if that something hurts the cells like tar would or keeps them moist when they would have dried out on their own. But on oaks, and I'm trying to think which other one that you don't want to have insects come to, I've forgotten. On oaks, if you cut out of season, when you cut in the risky season, during the growing season, we're told to put wood glue on the open cut. It's not going to hurt the wood, but it will seal this or help seal the smell in, because it's the smell of the cut wood that brings the insects in. So I think it was in Germany. It's probably yeah, it was in Germany. I think you can find that in the book, like The Body Language of Trees tells you about that. So glue can help in the growing season on oaks, but otherwise we're not putting it on there. Hi, Mark. Is it too early to wrap my arborvitae? I think it's too early. It's still it's probably just in the next couple of weeks. The growers who have their plants in pots and whatever, and put them into cold greenhouses for the winter. So they have hoop houses, and they've accumulated all their potted stuff into the hoop houses. They don't cover those with plastic until it's been cold enough that they're not going to heat up in there. And when you wrap the arborvitae, it can get quite hot in there. So I would give it maybe a week more. If it's a nice enough day to put Christmas lights out without gloves on, it's probably still too warm for the arborvitae. Let's move on here. I'm so proud of you, Margie. it's a brave example to say the city's putting in trees. I'm not sure that they're putting them in well. I want to see them planted well. So Margie saw this going on around the park and down the street. All of these trees coming in that the city was planting. Look at all those trees being unloaded, ready to go. And she said, I'm hoping they're going to plant them right. And that's what we need to do. They are our trees. They're our city trees. They are our trees. And we want to see them prosper and become a big tree someday, not a stunted tree that has a problem with its roots. So Margie talked to the people that were unloading the plants. They were landscapers that were hired to do the actual planting. And those are the people that we need to talk to, but there's been a lot of foot dragging. Like, Bert Craig, when we interviewed him about how things are going with roots, put it very well that there's an awful lot of momentum to stop and turn people into a different way of doing things. And the momentum has a lot to do with money with trees like this, to handle that root ball differently than to just drop it in the ground and put mulch around it. To tell somebody that they have to take the burlap off, to take the top wire cage off, to take off any extra soil down to the flare on the tree. It's going to take them an extra 20 minutes, and 20 minutes is money for these guys. So it's going to take a while. But Margie did go talk to them. And she said they were taking the cage off the top part and the burlap off the top part. And this is kind of what things were looking like. If you see the difference in the color of soil, this is a lot of our trees are coming from Tennessee, Carolinas, nurseries down there that grow them big in place, and you'll find the soil is quite different than your soil, or often quite different than your soil. It tends to be a redder soil, many times a heavier soil than the sandy soil, and or a wetter clay than we get in Michigan. But you can see the different color on top. What happens when they're growing these things in the field is that they'll come through to root prune with a tiller, and to keep the weeds down with a tiller, and that tends to throw soil up on the top. So you can see it's different color soil on the top. And that's one of the things that starts building up and makes it necessary to find the flare, which you can do by taking a probe, a meat skewer. A metal meat skewer works great as a probe, to just poke that down into the ball parallel to the trunk. And if there's a flare root there, it's going to be wide as it hits the trunk, and it'll go clunk, and you'll be able to see how deep it is. And if it's more than a couple of inches deep, you need to get that soil off of there. I see something else here. Does anybody else see what I see on this root ball? That is a problem, not quite a planting problem. It's great what they did with taking the burlap off and how much root they've got to spread out there. You see these white roots? Those are not the tree's roots. That's great bindweed. So this plant is coming in and bringing with it great bindweed. There's one of the leaves up there, but I know that root. If you get a tree that you're planting and you see a different color root in it, there's the roots of this looks like ginkgo bark. So I think this is a ginkgo tree. Margie could tell us for sure. But you see the color of the roots of the tree. That's not their root. If you get that out of there, you save yourself a lot of trouble. Quite often, weeds that become our nemesis move in with the plants. Scouring rush is one of those. It's one of our native plants that can be quite invasive. And if the field has got scouring rush in it, the root ball has scouring rush in it. Margie noted that they did also stake them tightly. We'd rather not see that. The tree needs to move in the wind. And any tree with a root ball as big as these have on them, this guy, they can stand up on their own, especially when they've got soil around that root ball. Most trees do not need to be staked. And if they do need to be staked, they should be staked loose, not pulled tight. It is unfortunately what they do. And you stake the bottom third of the trunk. 1, 2, pretty close, bottom third of the tree. So they have to move. If you do stake, you take it off after a year. Oaks being planted. And yes, the oaks are going to they've lost the leaves on branches that were old enough to bloom this year. But they keep the juvenile leaves on branches that were not old enough to bloom. And those will stay on until they'll fall sometime in the winter or by next spring. They'll get pushed off as the new growth comes. Yeah. So Margie went and talked to the people who were planting. She said, here's what you should do. I had to smile because Margie said I was calm. It's true. You have to not be too hysterical or too demanding of people who are doing this kind of stuff. A lot of times they don't know. They haven't heard what they're supposed to do with the trees. Yeah. There you go. Susanna's got the Xerxes organization's article called Leave the Leaves. I just wish people would leave the leaves, even if they shredded them. Just leave them. I look at the truckloads of organic matter that are taken out year after year after year after out of our neighborhoods and wonder what a waste that is. What a terrible waste. This year, this week, our yard waste pickup was late. I think they've just got a lot to do, so they were a day late. I had an extra day where I could have gone and stolen leaves, but I just didn't have the time to do it with helping friends. So I'm hoping that the oak leaves, and we have a lot of oaks in our neighborhood, are still coming down later so I can go and grab some oak leaves from people. Okay. Margie said just walking her dog and saw this. Dogs take us out into the world. I think it's, people say, well, it's a lot of trouble to have a dog. It is, but they make us get up in the morning. By the way, it's time to eat. They make us get up and walk around. Our 13-year-old, at least once a day, is going to stand next to me and go woof, woof, and bounce up and down like she's still a puppy and demand to be chased around the room. And that's good. That's good for us. I don't see any new questions here. Yeah, paper rock maple. Michelle brought up the topic. I don't have pictures of this because it's not something that I've looked into a lot, but when it comes to invasive plant species, there now appears to be a provision, a disclaimer, a caution on the yard waste directions in Michelle's community. The yard waste goes to a municipal composting site that Southeast Oakland County Resource Recovery Authority runs. And they've said that people should not put invasive plant species into their yard waste. They can be bagged up in small amounts and put out with the regular, with the garbage that's going to the landfill. That's a problem to me for a number of reasons. What's invasive? Quackgrass is an invasive weed. Our native scouring rush that I was just talking about is our native bindweed is an invasive weed. And most people don't know what's invasive. They certainly wouldn't know. I watched somebody taking down a buckthorn that was loaded with fruit and putting all those branches out. So all that fruit is there. Now, why would that be a problem in composting? Last week we were talking about the temperature of the commercial composting operation raising compost to 140 degrees when they keep the piles turned and cooking mixed properly. And 140 degrees is hot enough to kill the seeds that are in there and the insects and spores. So how could these invasive plants, they just turn into compost like everything else. However, in the area where the yard waste trucks are dumping their loads of stuff, there could be carryover soil and plant matter that gets squished into the ground by the heavy machinery scooping stuff out of that pile and might get carried off to the edges, and you'd have stuff happening on the edges of your composting site. And that could be a problem. I've certainly seen where people have bought compost or mulch from a landscape supply where they had compost stacked up as they do in big bins so that they can send it to you a yard at a time or however much you order. And if weed seeds blow onto that compost or onto that mulch, the weed seeds get in. So maybe they're trying to keep the invasive materials down around the edge, but I don't see how you can educate everybody on what's invasive or even get people to agree on what is invasive. And I don't want to see plant material go to the landfill. It's organic matter. It came its carbon came from this ground. Its nutrients came from this ground. And we should kill them and keep them in place. So has anyone else noticed this? Has anyone else noticed that your yard waste directions say don't put invasive plants in? I'd be interested. Mark wonders about dahlia tubers. We've been talking about dahlia tubers off and on. About dahlia tubers, should they be stored bare or in a light medium? It's better to put something around them that will help delay, retard the moisture loss, because as the dahlia bulb or any of the bulbs dry out, they wrinkle and become more susceptible to fungus infections. So they can be put into a potting mix. As Steve was explaining last week when we tried different methods, we tried crumpled newspaper and vermiculite and potting mix, and we found really no difference between them, just something to keep them from drying out. At Dahlia Hill in Midland, where they bag up thousands of dahlia tubers every fall, they just put them into a plastic bag, and then they put them into their root cellar. They've got a room built into the hill that is Dahlia Hill, and they can store thousands and thousands of tubers in boxes. So if you can keep them from drying out, you can store them bare, but most people put something to help retard the moisture loss, and then you still have to check them once in a while. Garlic mustard going to the trash, not yard waste. So they're out there. I'll have to start collecting some of these, and we'll see how well we can get people to follow them. I think I saw Suzanne here, and we talked about her viburnums last week, but 2 of her 4 viburnums, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2 of the viburnums, and she cut them all back 2 years ago. But 2 of them are smaller and struggling with leaf spot and smaller leaves. And what could be the problem? And we blue skied some issues that could be a problem. It could be that they're getting different light. It could be that they're being competed. They're at the root level with a tree that happens to have a major roots right where they are. Or it could be that when they were cut down, because there's ground cover around them, when you cut them down, that ground cover is shading the base of the plant, and the dormant buds that should be encouraged to sprout and become new stems don't sprout because they're staying cool and in the shade of these plants. When I cut down something like this viburnum, I take all of the Pachysandra away from it, pull it back. You don't have to get it out permanently. Pull it back so that spring there's sun down on the base, and that looks like that might have been part of what's going on here. So what happened was, rather than this stem that was cut back here, there's the cut. Rather than new sprouts coming from below, it kept the same branches that it had that were above things, and those branches are old and a bit decrepit, it looks like to me. There's a bit of lichen on them and the lichen is not doing anything. It's just indicating that there should be more shade. There should be more leaves above it. It should be shaded more. There's more light getting through. But there's quite a crowd of branches coming up here. So one place was able to sprout. So that might be an issue. I can't say that I know for sure, but I did ask Suzanne, sent an email, Suzanne. I don't know if you've seen it yet, but we asked Suzanne, would you mind if we come and take a look? I'm going to look at
Love
Jan.
it.
Okay, great.
This is me. Yeah, I'd love that. It's this one is definitely sprouting from that set of roots after some severe cutting. The one to the left of it actually is one branch that has grown from a major trunk, and that one branch is the one with the small leaves. It didn't make sense.
A lot of if the main trunk had a problem, viburnum can get borer in them. They can be girdled. They put so many twigs together, quite often rooted pieces together, to make the bush look fuller right away in the pot when we buy it, that these trunks may be pushing against each other. So if the trunk itself is weak, the sucker that comes from it is going to be weaker too, and would then be, the weaker they are, the more susceptible they are. But if you're amenable to coming out, I'm going out tomorrow to Janet's house to take a look at 2 trees that she had planted new last year, and she's wondering, how can I check to make sure that the roots are growing well now? So I'm going to take a look at her tree and see if that's a good place that we can all go out.
Yeah, that would be great. What time are you thinking?
well, let's see, sometime after I get the dogs taken care of and then it warms up, probably about 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock.
That's perfect. Okay.
Okay, good. I will say, and maybe we'll have one of our workshops out there at Suzanne's.
Oh, I would love that.
Fairness.
So I would so love that. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so Gail has noticed too that they've been told not to put garlic mustard and Phragmites in the yard waste. So we good gardeners who know those things are going to try to keep them out of the yard waste. And that any reduction in that stuff is a good idea, but I think it's kind of hard to actually happen. No pictures for this. My daughter-in-law and my brother-in-law each belong to a book club, and I listened to their discussion of what they're reading and think that would be kind of cool. So I'm wondering, and Steve might put it out to the whole reading, to our whole list of people who've looked at our website. Would you be interested in a garden book club where we propose a book a month and we read it and then have a day where we can talk about it? We could meet in person someplace, but we can also open it up to Zooming. I have a chair left for a Zoom camera so that we could invite other people in. If you're interested, if you think that sounds interesting, or if you have a book that you say, I might not want to be in the club, but I read this good book, you might want to send it to me, and I'll see about this winter when we're putting things together, we can do that. Susanna's trying to shield her Japanese maple from the wall. I explained that even the backside of a Japanese maple close to the wall can heat up and end up with damage on it. If you can put something that keeps it from getting the reflect, sorry, I got hiccups now, that can keep that reflected heat off of it. And a lot of times that's a piece of trellis put just a couple inches from the wall and leaned against the wall is a good baffle for the heat that would come off of there. Or covering that side of the trunk of the tree too. You could use grasses in bunches, or boxwood branches would work pretty well. Oh, good, Marvin, that would be great. So Marvin, we have one taker already who said I'd do the book club. Yeah, that way we can talk about something else. Okay, somebody sent me a picture this week. She said I was digging potatoes because the ground is getting cold now and I got to get these potatoes out of the ground. And look what I found. I've only found a few such big. This is a beetle pupa. So this is just like finding a butterfly chrysalis. We're looking at a grub, a big grub, turning into a beetle. It is inside there, and this is where degree days make a difference. While it's sitting in there and it's cold, it's just sitting there. It's not doing anything. But every day that it's over 50 degrees, this will grow a little bit until it gets to the point where it can break out of there and come out as a beetle. Now, which beetle it is, I don't know, but it's a big one. And I love big beetles. This one is some kind of longhorn beetle. It is not the Asian longhorn beetle because it's a monstrous big beetle that we found one day. And it'll eventually emerge, and each species has a certain amount of time that it needs in that pupa before it can come out. So the time is based on how many hours over 50 degrees it had to develop. And I just think they're great. Somebody I said, put it back in the ground. She said, put it back in the ground, right? I said, yeah, put it back in the ground. I mean, look at these guys. Look at this beetle. Emerald green with spots on him and big. He's a big guy. They're just great things to have. And yes, some of them are destructive of plants. Some of them carry spores around one way or another, but they all have a place. And taking them out of the picture a lot of times sets up a domino effect that affects other things out of the picture. There's one beetle that I saw. It's one of the blister beetles. It's got a big rotund body, blue-black color, almost shiny. As a youngster, it climbs to the tops of plants and waits until a bee comes, and then it hitches a ride from that bee to another proper plant that it needs to go to live on until it becomes a pupa. I mean, they're just fascinating life stories. So a lot of people say yuck, but quite often when you dig up a pupa like this, if you tap it, it still moves. It'll wiggle back and forth. It's kind of a bizarre thing. And some people would say yuck. see. Keeping of potatoes in raised beds with snow and leaves on it allows them to harvest potatoes later in the year. Yes, and if you can keep the ground from freezing, and if you put a heavy mulch on it, I put a heavy mulch on a garden where I had cannas one winter. I wanted to see how long can I dig these cannas. So I dug a few cannas at the beginning of November, and then I put a heavy mulch on the bed, and I kept coming out and moving mulch and digging, and I could dig until January, and the cannas still made it. Probably if I'd taken the mulch off, the ground would have frozen earlier, and once the ground freezes, then ice crystals form in the top of the canna tuber and damage it so that it's not going to grow the next year. So as long as you can keep them from freezing, and you could if like with the bananas, they call them hardy bananas. They aren't truly hardy, but if you protect them well enough, you can have a banana plant come back the next year. And basically, you're putting about 36 inches of straw on top of it, a couple of bales of straw over it. So you can keep them a long time. And the potatoes, yeah, if you can keep them well mulched, you can pull potatoes and carrots and other root crops quite late. Well, Chris found a pupil like that. The wild turkey was thrilled when I tossed it over to him. I bet. I say, whoa, big, juicy, got lots of protein in it, got some extra fat. It's perfect. Perfect food. So we are setting up our season 7 webinar schedule, figuring out which topics we want to cover and what people we want to have cover them. And also, while we're doing that, I said it's time to restart and plan further ahead so people can join us on Garden by Janet and Steve workshops, where just like we were talking to Suzanne, if it turns out that this is something that I said, other people can come and take a look at this too. We can meet someplace, we can diagnose problems, we can meet someplace, we can help put in a garden, we can meet someplace, we can plant a tree, we can meet and do some pruning. Those things that we want to do, and we used to do that quite a bit, but then we got a little bit lazy. We were behind. We were only announcing things a week ahead of time, and people couldn't go to them. We want to put them on the schedule and say, this is the date we're going to be at the library, and this is what we're going to be doing. So you can join us. We'd have, if you are a subscriber to our weekend walkabouts, you can propose a project, and we'll include it in the schedule. We'll give our other subscribers to the webinars first choice, but we'll take at least 5 or 6 people at each time to come and take a look. Come move that tree, come prune that hydrangea. Sonia, who was looking just before we got started for the name of this hydrangea, is not sure, although we've talked to her about how to prune it, how to do it, and that pruning is going to be end of March is the time to do it. And it is one of the twice blooming hydrangeas that people ask repeatedly about how to prune, so we'll prune it together. So if you've got a project like that, decorating with greens, filling window boxes, or anything else, let us know. Send us an email, send us a text, say, here's a project that I'm proposing. Give Steve and me a time to take a look and see which things we think we could do, and then we'll take it from there. We're building a shrub over so big branches of juniper that we're laying down will now cover those butt ends, and it'll look like there's a juniper growing here. Someone asked if they blow away. These branches are quite a bit bigger than blowing branches, and because they're evergreen, they tend to have a lot of snow sitting on top of them, and they stay down. Yes, Judith wants to know if we do field trips and workshops, can we Zoom them for the faraway folks? We will try to do that. It's not always possible to do that because of internet connections, and because sometimes I can't have a camera person with us. Sometimes Steve can't be there, or sometimes it just doesn't work. But we'll try to do as much as we can to include people in those, even if it's after the fact. And I think that's probably all that I have that's real. We've got a few minutes left. Any sage advice for moving a decent sized red twig dogwood from my rain garden? I have a couple of lilacs still to dig out, but I'll be digging out dogwoods. Tie the branches up so they're out of your way. So cinch them in. Saw those trees were tied up tight, and you would know how those come in, Margaret, all the time. cinch the branches in so that you can work around it. And then just go ahead and cut the roots. Dogwood has also, like the hibiscus, shallow roots that go a long way out. And if you cut around a half or 2/3 of the way around the shrub, you can usually then tip it up and peel out some extra roots from the from the side that you didn't cut. And I tend to drag them around with me rather than carry them around. I get them out of the soil, knock as much soil weight off of them as I can, and drag them onto a tarp and then drag them someplace. If Gail is here, she's saying, don't drag, don't drag. Gail had her shoulder replaced, and then the surgeon said, please stop dragging things around. Okay, well, get someone else to drag them then. Okay, Suzanne, she has more things. Yeah, once you get people out to take a look at what's going on in your yard, it's fun. It's just we do that in my neighborhood. I started a garden club here in the neighborhood, mostly so that I could meet people other than the people who have kids my grandkids' age or dogs that walk their dogs, and I see them out in the garden when I'm working out in the garden. We started a garden club so that some neighbors could talk, and we just get together at somebody's house once a month, and we walk around their yard and we talk about what's in their garden. It's nice to have someone else to talk about in gardens, so we'll do that. Aren't they beautiful? Arborvitaes are just, they're so lush and green. Arborvitaes throw people off. That's a leaf pressed there. This is a twig. This is a branch. So it's growing new leaves every year. And I can go all the way back to there. There's wood forming there, bark beginning to form. So all that is 1 year's growth. And it will grow new branches from any place that still has the green buds on it. So I can cut that branch right back to here and let it grow out for another 2 or 3 years. Oh, I forgot to ask Martha whether or not the trees got hit. Got quite cold in South Carolina this last couple of weeks. Red twig dogwood would start from branches stuck in the ground. Yes, it does. It roots very readily. But if you want to bring the whole shrub out, then you tend to want to say, well, I might as well have the whole thing grow. Yeah, they root very readily. A lot of shrubs root very readily. Forsythia does, euonymus does, burning bush does, juniper does. If they're in good contact with the soil or jammed into the ground and have few enough leaves that they can support it with the moisture that they pull up through the cut stem, they keep themselves alive and then come up later. I got my first red twig dogwoods as just little sticks, little rooted pieces that they grow very fast. Well, I think I'm probably going to have to wrap it up a little bit early if there's not anything else to talk about. Red twig from Christmas decorations, and they all rooted. Yes? Isn't it fun to do that stuff? And then you got to find a place to put them because you feel responsible for this plant life that you have started, right? Where can I put these? My friend Burdette used to start lots of things from seed, and things like rosemary and sage from cuttings. And she always had too many of them to put in her garden. She would do things like put a bunch of little pots together in a box, and she'd leave them on people's doorsteps, on friends' doorsteps. Just here, please give these a home. A tree is growing through a dogwood. How do you get them out? Oh, sometimes when trees are growing up in bushes, and I see it when people are trimming a hedge, for instance, you go, oh, there's another tree in there. Sometimes you can't get that out of there. You can't dig it out of there. You have to cut it repeatedly. You have to mark the stem and just keep going back in and cutting it. And if you cut them a number of times, depends on the species that's coming up, how much energy it's stored below where you can make a cut, you can discourage it from coming up. Otherwise, yeah, you do have to try to find a way to cut the dogwood apart or tip it up and take the plant out that's coming through it. That's one of the reasons that I make weeds a priority in the fall, especially woody weeds. I drop everything as I walk by. If I see right now Norway maples coming up, or our native black cherries are coming up all over the place, I'm going to pull them now because they're very apparent now. They keep a couple of leaves and they're sticking up quite sturdily above the foliage that's gone down in the cold. And so it's a good time in the fall to notice those things and pull them out. Yeah. And Suzanne is suggesting you cut it and use some stump kill. Just be careful not to get that stump kill onto your red twig dogwood, because I'm not very good at, I have shaky hands now, but even before I had shaky hands, I was not very good at aiming that stuff without dripping it on things that shouldn't be dripped on. Well, I hope you have a great holiday weekend coming up here, because we have a weekend walkabout coming up on Saturday, December 6th. That's Kids in Nature that Lauren Postal is going to work us with. And then we have Travel the World with Dave Mitchner on January 3rd. I don't even know what places he's taking us to, but places we haven't been before. And we're taking a holiday break for the Friday Free4All. So our next Free4All will be after that January webinar. So not until January 9th will we be back here. But if you've got a question or a concern or something you want to crow about, still send it to us. We answer those individually, and we could stock those up for winter topics to talk about at Free4All Fridays. So have a great Thanksgiving, if that's what you celebrate. Have a good Friendsgiving, and have a good holiday season. We'll see you in the new year.